All right, the Steelers lose to the Buffalo Bills 38-3 in embarrassing fashion. Mike Tomlin says changes could and will be on the way. Let's talk about what those changes could be and should be. All right, welcome to Steeler Country. I am Tony Serino. Today on the show, we are recapping. Well, we're recapping Steelers Bills, but we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the game itself because, yikes. That was one of the least fun Steeler games I can remember, and in a game that we were all excited to go in because it was Kenny Pickett's first start. And yes, it's a tough place for him to start, but at least we have the excitement of, hey, this is going to be Kenny's first start. And boy, that was just a disaster from the word go. If you heard me on AFC North talk, I mean, those first 5 plays, at least the Steelers didn't kind of string us along. You know, I mean, at least they told us straight off the top, this is how it's going to be. It's going to be as bad as you can imagine, and maybe even worse than you could have imagined. And, you know, from there, we just kind of had to wallow in the misery that was that football game. I think the thing that I come out of it most bothered by is that was completely non-competitive. That was like, I keep comparing it to a college football game because that's what I think it was like. I mean, that's what it reminded me of watching it. You know, this reminded me of, and you see this in college a lot, because in college, obviously, there's a very, very wide talent gap between the best teams and the worst teams, right? And then you can go to like Division II stuff where it's the talent gap there gets even wider. Yeah, this was 31-3 at halftime. Josh Allen had thrown for 340 yards at halftime. I mean, I know on-pace stats are stupid, but you know, he was on pace for 700 yards, and they were on pace for scoring 62 on the Steelers. I mean, it was pretty much a pick your number, right? They could have just picked their number. Whatever number they wanted to get to, they could have gotten there. You know, the Steelers had 2 turnovers in the red zone, one a nice strip by Cam Hayward, the other one a nice interception by Levi Wallace. But both of those were with Buffalo driving and trying to score. I mean, again, that's, you know, they those go the other way. Obviously, this could have got even further out of hand. And I understand the Steelers were massive underdogs going in. They were 14-point underdogs. This is the biggest they've ever been an underdog in franchise history since the merger. But I don't know. I wasn't expecting. I didn't expect that. Right? I mean, I understood like they're probably going to lose this football game, but holy cow, yeah, getting just completely blown off. Just the doors blown off was just not on my radar in this one. Mike Tomlin keeps saying, changes are coming. We're going to be making some changes here. Obviously, the depth chart came out today. I'm recording this on Tuesday. The depth chart didn't have any changes on it other than maintaining that Steven Sims will be the return guy. I would guess that there's not going to be, like the depth chart says, there's not going to be big sweeping changes as far as starters just yet. Kenny was obviously the big one. I do think there's going to be some rotational stuff. So let's talk about what I think those changes will likely be and how I think that they can affect things going forward and whether or not we talk about this team turning it around and everything. I mean, boy, oh boy, what is the turnaround? What kind of turnaround are we expecting? I mean, this team is at this point. Look, Buffalo's the best team in football. No problem saying that. That's pretty clear. But the Steelers are, I think, right now close to the bottom of the league, right? I mean, I think every Steeler fan kind of understands they are a bottom 10, maybe even bottom 5 football team at this point. So turning it around, maybe you can get somewhere closer to league average, but dreams of this team stealing the division from the other teams in the AFC North, I think that seems so far away. And then doing like they did last year, right, where this team was 1-3 a year ago and was able to turn it around from there and win 9 football games and sneak themselves into that 7th seed in the playoffs. And so, is there the expectation that they could do that? I think that this team is. I think this team right now looks like the kind of football team that, because they're the Steelers, I'd still expect them to get somewhere closer to like 6 wins. Just because, I'm still going to give Mike Tomlin the benefit of the doubt here. Although we'll talk about Mike Tomlin as we go throughout the show, because certainly, when we're talking about a lot of these changes, we're talking about a lot of the players that have been disappointing thus far. Mike Tomlin's at the top of the list as far as disappointment. I mean, and again, we're talking about process-related things when it comes to, how he kind of structured this team going into the year and the decisions that he's made along the way. And then, of course, the in-game decisions, specifically in this game. I mean, the kicking of the field goals in the second quarter, the second quarter one was the most egregious one. The other one, I mean, you kick a sad field goal at the end of the game. And again, I talk about college football. I mean, you ever watched like Michigan and Hawaii? Yeah, Hawaii's kicking sad field goals in the fourth quarter of that one just to make it look respectable. But you don't kick a sad field goal in the second. I mean, they're down what, 21, 24? Was it 24 or 20? It was 24-3, right? When you kick the field goal in the second half or in the second quarter. I mean, that's embarrassing stuff. Mike Tomlin, we don't live in our fears and all that stuff. Give me a break, Mike. But anyway, let's go through the changes here. Changes I think are realistic. And we'll start with the defense, because the defense, to me, I know the offense has a lot of concerns and there's a lot of changes that I think people want on the offensive side of the ball. But this is a team that came into the year and they were going to win games defensively. Top 5 defense. This is going to be a defense-led team like it's been the last 3 seasons. This is how they're going to win. They're going to be dominant. And then the offense, they're going to kind of just string them along. Don't screw it up for us offense. And instead, what we've gotten really, since post week 1 is a defense that has gotten worse week over week. I mean, like what happened against Cincinnati was awesome and hilarious and fun to watch. But then what happened against New England was, okay, it was no longer dominant. You knew it wasn't going to be dominant without TJ. Then what happened against Cleveland was kind of embarrassing to watch them just get kind of blown off the ball. I mean, they really got dominated in that football game by Cleveland, who really dictated what they wanted to do. And then the Jets come into town. And while for 3 quarters, it looked like, this is winning football defensively again, fourth quarter, they gave it away. And then obviously what happened on Sunday was just a complete embarrassment defensively. So, okay, what changes realistically can they make? Well, first of all, I think there's no personnel change that's going to fix what's happening. I mean, this team is certainly decimated by injury right now. When you look at, obviously, they lost TJ Watt, and that's your best player, that's your defensive player of the year. Losing that player is going to have a massive effect. I mean, this was, if we imagine that a fully healthy Steeler defense, the Steeler defense that we saw in week 1, it came into the year with basically every player healthy except DeMonte Casey, who was a new addition anyway. I think that was a top 5, top 3 unit, certainly. So you lose TJ Watt, you're going to come down a little bit. Now, since then, you've got Terrell Edmonds, who's dealing with a concussion. You have Akilla Witherspoon, who's dealing with a hamstring injury. And then in game in this one, they dealt with the injuries to I believe Cam Sutton went down, Levi Wallace went down, and Larry Ogunjobi went down. I mean, those are big players, and that's going to cause a fall off. But I mean, this defense had some injuries last year. I don't remember getting this. Again, I don't remember a team throwing for 340 on this team in the first half of a football game. Like Kansas City had a lot of success against the Steelers last year. But remember, the playoff game last year was competitive for at least a quarter and a half, right? Before, okay, the dam kind of broke and yeah, Kansas City did their thing. So I don't necessarily buy into the idea that it's all injuries. I mean, certainly injuries are having a major impact on this defense. But I think the number one thing that I've been disappointed in the last couple of weeks is the lack of aggression, the lack of real aggression. I mean, I understand that at times they're bringing blitz, they're still doing like the nickel stuff. But when you don't have TJ Watt, right? When you clearly have a Cam Hayward who is not the same Cam Hayward. I mean, he's not playing poorly. This is not. I'm not here to say Cam Hayward is washed and he's done. And all that and bench Cam. No, but Cam Hayward's clearly not the same Cam Hayward that we've seen in years past. The Ogunjobi thing. I mean, Ogunjobi's not really giving you a whole lot on the interior. And but realistically, when the primary way of getting pass rush with this defense is still we're just going to rush 4. Again, I think you're kind of setting yourself back. This team has Brian Flores on their coaching staff. Brian Flores in Miami was known for bringing real aggression. And I get you can't schematically shift entirely to like a cover 0 look all the time, especially when this team has this year been a lot of cover 2 and then some cover 3 stuff. But I think you got to certainly, you can't just sit back and just hope that Malik Reed one day is going to turn into a premier edge rusher, or hope that, hey, Alex Highsmith was leading the league in sacks for the first couple weeks of the year, so we're just going to hope that he's going to continue doing that as we go. There has to be, I think, schematically, there has to be shifts in how this team tries to bring pressure at the quarterback, because if they don't, the secondary is not holding up, especially as they're getting more and more banged up. And it's, again, it's a snowball effect. TJ goes down, the pass rush gets worse, the defense gets, the secondary gets more injured, and it's like, okay, and now all of a sudden, you can imagine a world where, yeah, this defense did go from being one of the best in the league in week 1 to holy cow, exactly how bad is this defense? And as I think aggression, schematically, that's the number one thing I think this team has to work on going forward. Second thing is, from a personnel perspective, I think it's fairly obvious to anyone who's been watching the last couple of weeks, DeMarvin Leal needs to get a hat, and he needs to play. He needs to be the first guy off the bench. I mean, look, I'm not saying you're not going to bench Cam Hayward, you're not going to bench Larry Ogunjobi just yet, because we're 4 weeks into the year, and those are two proven players. But this is a team that uses a heavy rotation on the defensive line. DeMarvin Leal has to be number one off the bench. Number one off the bench has to be Leal, certainly. I mean, he's the one guy who's bringing some juice on that defensive line. The one guy who you're like, yeah, Leal is playing well. Everybody else, Chris Wormley, Montravius Adams, Alualu. I mean, these guys, nope. I think you got to give Leal more reps, and that's got to start against Tampa Bay. The other guy I keep seeing get thrown around is Mark Robinson, the linebacker the Steelers took from Ole Miss, who had a really good preseason, ended up making the roster. Look, I'm not going to disagree with the Mark Robinson takes because I love where it comes from. This defense needs more aggression. You need guys with juice. You want guys out there who are just flying around. They don't have that right now. And Mark Robinson certainly represents that kind of player. And when you think about the kind of passiveness of Devin Bush, and Devin had a very poor game on Sunday. I think he hasn't had a poor year. He had a very poor game on Sunday, though, and that can't be ignored. Mark Robinson's going to come in and certainly give you more juice at the linebacker position, just from an aggression standpoint. But where and when are you playing him? I thought Mark Robinson against the passing game, as kind of a pass defender in preseason, is where he was at his worst. He was a very good run defender. And so I suppose in base down situations, you could activate Robinson and play him. But like, how often is this team even in base anymore? Or you can put him in obvious running downs, like early down situations, I suppose. I wouldn't hate that. But one of the bigger problems this team has, they're still obsessed with Robert Spillane in passing down situations. And I just don't know if there's a good answer for that. Because while I don't trust Robert Spillane, we've talked about this forever. I don't trust him from an athletic standpoint. And offensive coordinators are starting to realize, like, yeah, we just go where Robert is. That's going to be good for us. I don't trust Devin either. And so, I don't know. I guess you can put Mark out there and see what happens. I just think that's kind of a recipe for disaster. I like Mark Robinson. I think he can end up being a good player. And I understand why fans want to see Robinson on the field. It may be, I just think this is one where it's like, you're putting it's just not the right time to get Mark Robinson. He's not going to answer the questions that are being asked of the inside linebacker position. And I think that's where I am on that one. And then as far as, the rest of the changes you can make, I mean, as far as secondary or edge rusher, the secondary, there's no changes you can make because at this point, they're just dealing with so many injuries that they're kind of playing everybody they have. And they were playing Josh Jackson, who's a practice squad player at corner last week. I do think, though, I think you have to, okay, with the Levi Wallace situation, you always have to be giving him safety help over the top. I mean, I think we just, and he did on that first play. Levi Wallace did have safety help over the top. In fact, I believe he had safety help both to Gabe Davis, both touchdowns, because the second one, I believe Levi was in coverage, and that's the one where Minka should have stolen the ball away, and he just kind of got overpowered there. But you always, I think we understand with Levi, there's a big concern there when it comes to his speed. Otherwise, what are the changes you can make? I suppose the idea would be that Trey Norwood can't be trusted to start another game if he has to, because that was not a great outing for him. But you have Elijah Riley is on the practice squad. You could elevate him potentially. I could see that. But remember, Carl Joseph went on IR in preseason, so he's not available to come in and play strong. And then Demonte Casey could be back at some point this year, but that's going to likely be more of a midseason thing. At edge rusher, the Steelers are just kind of throwing stuff against the wall. They've signed and activated Ryan Anderson at times. They're still playing. They're still playing guys like Leal, at edge, playing them over at edge and trying to work in, Jameer Jones and Malik Reed and all those guys. And none of that is working to this point. So yeah, the outside linebacker, the edge position thing, that it was a problem in preseason. And boy, did it was one of those. It's one of those you would call it football justice, wouldn't you? It was one of those positions all offseason where you just looked at and you're like, man, they don't really have a good third edge rusher. what are they doing at this position? But then it was always like, well, they have TJ, they have Alex Highsmith. Like if TJ goes down, it's going to be a disaster anyway. So who cares? But then it's like, no, who cares? We'll see who cares. It's one of those kind of deals. So yeah, defensively, I think obviously, like I said, secondary, there's not a lot of changes you can make. There's not enough players. At the linebacker position, I'd love to see Robinson on the field. I just don't know I don't know that he addresses the situation at hand, which is you really need a better coverage linebacker. I don't think he's that guy. On the defensive line, I do think Leal has to play more. I think those are the changes you can make right now defensively. Probably the more interesting changes are on the offensive side of the ball, because this is where we're going to start talking about some big names on this team who are going to have to get replaced. We've already done that once. We've seen Kenny Pickett come in for Mitch Trubisky. That happened last week against the Jets. The next domino to fall here is that Jaylen Warren has to start, doesn't he? And this is whether this is a Najee Harris injury or what, it doesn't matter. I mean, we could talk about he looks like he's still hurt from the foot injury he had in preseason. Tomlin said today during training camp, or during his press conference, that he missed all of training camp, so he missed team development. I mean, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever the excuse, whatever reason you want to give for why Jaylen Warren should start over Najee Harris, I just think it's fairly obvious that Najee Harris right now is not playing well. He has no burst whatsoever. He doesn't trust the offensive line, which causes him to so often try to kick it outside rather than take what could be a 2 or 3 yard gain. He wants to kick it outside. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but Next Gen Stats said today that he has the lowest expected yards of any running back. Sorry, the lowest yards over expectation of any running back in the National Football League right now. So what they're measuring is, okay, given where the defenders are, given where the offensive line is, given the hole that's there, what is the expected yards we expect to get for each running back? No running back has less than Najee Harris this year. And we talked about this in the preseason. We talked about this at the beginning of the regular season, right? When I said, Jaylen may be a better player right now for this offense. Maybe a better player right now for this offense because Jaylen runs with that kind of aggression that you need behind a bad offensive. You can't, you can't do the whole like let's dance and try to figure, try to make things happen when everybody's bearing down. I mean, teams are not playing the Steelers like they respect anything about this running game or even the passing game. And so you just kind of got to take what they're giving you. I mean, that's kind of got to be the MO of the running back. And that's what Warren does. Warren plays with the kind of aggression at the running back spot this team needs. He has burst. Who's more capable right now of popping off a 15 or 20 yard run? Probably neither, because his offensive line's not going to give him that kind of hole. But I think we could all agree it would be Jaylen Warren at this point. In fact, I think Jaylen Warren has, and I don't know that Najee has. And by the way, Warren is the nice thing about Warren and why this change may end up happening for real. I don't know if Tomlin's actually going to do this, but Warren is already winning the third down back spot, passing down situation back, because he's so good as a pass blocker. You could even argue he's better than Najee right now as a pass blocker. He's still good as a receiver, and he gives you that run after catch. It's a tough situation because they took Najee Harris in the first round last year, and it was a controversial pick at the time. But at the end of the day, you can't sit there and say, well, we took him with the first round pick, so they got to keep playing. I'm like, look, hurt, not hurt, just playing poorly, doesn't matter. You have another guy on the back. You have another young back who's clearly at this point playing better than Warren, or playing better than Najee. Play Jaylen Warren. All right, next change here. I don't really have a solution here so much as I have an idea, which is, the Claypool thing. I'm not going to go on a rant like I do on AFC North Talk. Everybody knows my thoughts on Chase Claypool. I make them very known every time his name gets brought up. Not a fan. But the problem I have with Chase Claypool at this point is, okay, so 5 weeks into the year, we've basically just taken an outside receiver who didn't work out as an outside receiver and moved him to slot with the exact same result. He's still unable to win combat catch situations. We talked about the silly play he had last week where, he had a 50-50 ball against a 5'8" player who he allowed to get their hands on the ball and tip it away from him and for an interception. Here's the issue. Like the Mark Robinson thing. Okay, so I'd like to see someone else be the slot receiver for this team. Because what is Chase Claypool getting you at that spot right now? You'd like to see with with Claypool, the idea should be that he could be a slot fade guy, right? You can get some big plays there because you're overpowering. Guys are kind of sliding. You can imagine like Chase Claypool running over the middle, linebacker or slot guy falling off of Claypool because he's too big, too strong, and then kind of run, big run after catch situations for Claypool. You can imagine those things, but you're going to have to because they're not going to happen on the football field. The problem I have here is I don't know who you're going to replace him with. I mean, it's not going to be Gunner. Gunner's not even going to get a hat anymore. Gunner looked good as a slot receiver at times in preseason and in camp, but Gunner lost his spot as the return guy. All-pro return guy can't hold on to the football, which is pretty cool. So then it falls to Steven Sims, who, as I said, throughout the preseason process, he had really good returns and he had some nice end arounds and stuff. But as a receiver, what did he really give you? I mean, did he have like 2 or 3 catches throughout the entire preseason? I didn't see a lot of like great run after catch and stuff, him getting open and proving that kind of thing. So I would like to see Sims potentially get worked into some packages in the receiving game just to see what they can do. Obviously, Calvin Austin is always going to get thrown out here because, Calvin Austin, for those of you who aren't familiar, 5'7", super fast wide receiver. The Steelers drafted in the 4th round last year, or this year, excuse me. But he's hurt right now. He is on IR. He is eligible to return. He is practicing. We'll see if he ends up getting a hat. But again, once he gets a hat, then someone else has to be deactivated. I don't know who that's going to be. So, is that going to be Miles Boykin? Because Boykin's been so good as a special teamer. He was a gunner at this point. So, yeah, I mean, we end up in that situation again. So I think for me, like, I think Steven Sims is probably the best case scenario. But I don't know. It's frustrating at this point because this receiving core, which should be so good and should be providing Kenny with reliable targets, right? You have one of the biggest, strongest, most athletic slot receivers in the league. You have one of the best route runners in the league. And you have, this like young, up and coming phenom in George Pickens, who is, basically you just throw it up there and he's going to come down with it. And yet Deontay's going back to like, I can't make a routine catch. The spectacular catches that he should be making, again, I know it's a hard thing to say that Deontay needs to get, you got to get those feet in bounds. I mean, number one receiver. It is though. I mean, he did take a discount, so I guess there is the whole you get what you pay for thing with him, isn't there? Yeah, I mean, like, so I don't know. You got to do something here. You got to do something because Claypool is the one guy who you could see like, okay, this has kind of played itself out. Let's see if there's another option here because Sims showed you some things, at least with the ball in his hands in preseason. And if Gunner ever gets a spot back, then Gunner showed you some things. Maybe you can make that work. But the big thing, so we spent 23 minutes on this show. We haven't talked about what the big change that everyone wants to make offensively. And I'll include myself here. Like, I'm no fan of Matt Canada. I've made that very clear throughout the entire process. In fact, as I've been saying on this show since week 1, I find the whole Trubisky versus Canada thing very, very silly. Because both guys are bad. I mean, like to me, it was never a binary choice, right? I mean, it's, is the problem with the offense Mitch Trubisky or Matt Canada? Yeah, it's both, right? I mean, like, is the reason my car won't start because I'm out of gas or my battery's dead? Well, I mean, you're going to need to put some gas in it, and then you're going to need to get the battery changed. I mean, you're going to need to do both. And now, firing Canada got brought up because Tomlin was asked after the Buffalo game, are staff changes possible? Are roster changes possible? And he said, I'm not ruling anything out. So everyone got real excited. Oh, Matt Canada's getting fired. He's not. Matt Canada's not getting fired. And I'll tell you why Matt Canada's not getting fired. Because I don't think Mike Tomlin's not going to do it to himself. The spotlight that goes on Mike Tomlin, if that happens and things don't get better, I mean, the spotlight that goes on Mike Tomlin at that point is real big and real bad. Because what will we be saying about Mike Tomlin if and when he fires Matt Canada, things don't get any better, right? Okay, this was going into let's go back to the narrative that was this offseason and this preseason. This is post-Ben era. This is Mike Tomlin gets to make the offense and whatever his image is, whatever he wants it to be. He gets to pick whatever quarterback he wants. And he gets to run whatever offense he wants. This is it. You're no longer like shackled by Ben Roethlisberger, right? I mean, he inherited Ben. He had a great career with Ben. No losing seasons, yada yada. But you come into that. Okay, so now post Ben, what does Mike Tomlin want this offense to be? And who does he want to be his quarterback? He signs Mitch Trubisky and he keeps Matt Canada on as his OC. Okay, so you mean to tell me that you think that within 3.5 games, he's going to have benched that veteran quarterback, who, by the way, throughout the entire process, he made QB1. And I know he said, oh, QB competition, but we all know there was no QB competition. Mitch Trubisky took 99.9999% of all the reps, all the first team reps in training camp, and like 95% of the first team reps in preseason. Mitch Trubisky was QB1 from the word go. This was Tomlin's guy. This is who I wanted. I got my guy. He's my guy going in. And then 3.5 games into it, he went, actually, he ain't my guy. He ain't my guy. Put the rookie in. No. Mitch ain't my guy. And then you mean to tell me that after doing that, right? So post-Ben era lasted about 3.5 games before he decided actually post-Ben era is actually not Mitch Trubisky, it's Kenny Pickett. And then you mean to tell me that what? How many more games you think like the next week he's going to then fire his offensive coordinator? Which would mean that in a post-Ben era, Mike Tomlin, you can make the offense into whatever you want, bench his quarterback and fired his offensive coordinator within like 4 or 5 weeks? No, there's no chance he's going to do that. No. He's going to play this thing out with Matt, and he is going to hope and pray that Matt and Kenny can figure this thing out. Because otherwise, holy cow, that's a massive disaster for Mike. I mean, that is again, this is why I say, like, Tomlin is not above criticism of what's happening with this football team. Like, yeah, I understand that post-Ben era was not going to be great. Okay, post-Ben era is supposed to be bad. When your Hall of Fame quarterback retires, it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to have some it's supposed to be an uphill battle. But, man, benching your quarterback and then firing your offensive coordinator within the first third of the season, that's about as bad as it could be. It's like, well, I actually made the wrong choice at quarterback and I kept on the wrong offensive coordinator, and I got to make those changes real quick. That's not going to happen. Now, is Canada giving this offense a chance? No. But he hasn't been doing that all year. I mean, like, this Matt Canada offense is incredibly frustrating because it's so simplistic. There's no challenging down the football field with route concepts that are trying to push the football. The only route concepts that this team runs, like what realistically, like what are the concepts they run? They run stick a lot. They run slant, the slant flat dragon or whatever that's called. And they run mesh, right? But like, they're not running anything that's down the football field, right? They're not challenging in a world where everyone's playing too high, right? They're not challenging safeties. They're not putting guys in high low. And so you were never putting Trubisky in an offense that was suitable for what Mitch's talents were, which were, again, I've said this before, but like the Falcons offense is exactly what the Steelers should have been doing, which is just a ton of RPO, a ton of play action, get Mitch on the run. I mean, Mariota's not a good quarterback, but Arthur Smith knows that, and he's going to try and put Arthur Smith trying to put Mariota in a situation that he can be successful in. Canada is just like, I'm just going to run my stuff. And look, Tomlin has to have some responsibility for that, because why does this offense run that stuff? I don't buy that, Canada's just like running this stuff and Tomlin's not happy with it, right? Like if Tomlin had his way, this team would be challenging down the field and all that. Like I think very clearly Tomlin wanted this offense to be conservative, safe, right? We're going to win the games defensively. Don't screw it up offensively. That's why he was praising Trubisky after week 1, even though that was a horrific game for Trubisky in week 1. Tomlin was there saying, no, good game. Didn't turn the ball over. Like, we can be better, but, didn't turn the ball over. So I like that. Okay. That's a really low bar. It's a really low bar, Mike. So, like, look, now, to those of you who are upset because they're not going to fire Canada, don't worry. I mean, Canada's likely gone at the end of the year. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Kenny Pickett's going to likely have 2 offensive coordinators in 2 years. But I don't think it's happening during the season because I just think it's like Tomlin indicting himself, and I just don't think he's going to do that. I don't, because It's a bad look. All right, so those are the changes. I mean, again, so offensively, I think Jalen Warren's got to start. Otherwise, offensive line changes. And the offensive line's not that bad, Like they're not a good offensive line, but we knew that going in. And the offensive line is actually a positive because they're probably better than we expected. Dan Moore at the left tackle spot has not played well, but he hasn't been an out-and-out disaster like he looked like he was going to be in preseason. And while the run blocking isn't great, once again, I don't think it's a disaster. I think if you put Jalen Warren back there, you certainly get more positive results. And from a pass blocking perspective, just on a whole, it's not exactly like guys are running free left and right and there's miscommunication. I mean, to put it another way, it's not the Bengals. It's not the Bengals. And I think that's, for when you look at what the Bengals did in spending $1 gajillion to go out there and sign every has-been that there is on the offensive line and watch what their results are. Like the fact that the Steelers have this really young offensive line that while it isn't great yet, it isn't great. No, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would put them like, where are they? Like the 20th best offensive line in the league. That's a hell of an improvement from where they were a year ago, where I would have probably put them closer to 30. So, yeah, I think, from an offensive perspective, you got to play Warren. I think something with slot receiver has to be done. And then from the offensive coordinator spot, like we're just gonna have to, unfortunately, Steeler fans, we're just gonna have to watch this for the next whatever it's gonna be. How many games left? 12 games, and then hopefully Mike Tomlin goes out there and gets an offensive coordinator that actually has some ideas about wanting to be aggressive. I mean, you still have at the end of the day with Pickens, with Freiermuth, with Deontay, and whether it's Jalen Warren or Najee Harris, I mean, you still have a kind of a core nucleus there of guys you can build around. And of course, the other guy we haven't talked about today, and we are of course going to talk about Kenny Pickett today. We got Kenny Pickett at quarterback. And Kenny Pickett through 2 games now. We've seen him in the second half of New York and this entire game against Buffalo. And I would say, not bad. Not bad. I mean, I don't think he's been great. I know there was that image floating around Twitter today of like the EPA dots from runningbacks.matter.com, where it had Kenny Pickett as like the greatest player to ever, play. And I mean, that chart's really deceptive because if you look at the filters at the top and it's like, it's plays, it's third down only on plays that are within 4% or 96% win probability, which like eliminates, I don't know, 99% of the Buffalo game. Like I think what it only captures is the entire Jets game. But he didn't throw a pick on third down. Remember, in that Jets game, he didn't throw a pick on third down. And then like the first maybe 2 drives, when did the win percentage get to 96? There's probably 2 or 3 drives of the offense. That's where, I mean, it's very misleading. It's like taking this, you have a nice sample size for Kenny. You have 70 plays that you can look at. I mean, it's not a huge sample size, but it's, you threw the ball 52 times on Sunday. So you have a decent sample size. And then you're like, we'll just shrink it way down to this little thing. I'm like, oh, look, if you really tunnel vision, I mean, like we're already kind of tunnel vision because we have, we don't have the 300 plays yet. And then you're going to, it's silly. But Kenny looks good, man. Kenny looks good. And again, it goes back to the idea that he just looks so comfortable. The poise of this kid. He doesn't look like a kid. I mean, he does look like a quarterback who's in like year 3 or 4 when it comes to his comfort level. Now, obviously, we'd all love for him to start pushing the ball down the field. We love for him to start making some more throws, maybe some tighter window throws. And we talked about this before. Again, it's just not going to happen in a Matt Canada offense. So, we'll wait for that till next year. But I still think when it comes to his ability to navigate the pocket, keep plays alive, he had the one bad throw. Okay, tell me what you guys thought about that interception. Was he trying to go back shoulder there to Deontay? You think he just didn't see the defender, or you think he was trying to go back shoulder? I think he did see the defender, and he tried to go back shoulder again, and that defender sat on the back shoulder throw. That was my read of it originally. I know the All-22 is out. I haven't had a chance to watch the All-22 yet, so I should probably go back and do that. Maybe that'll give me a better look at it. But that was my read of the play, because all Kenny does is throw back shoulder. I mean, he never just. Sometimes it's very weird with Kenny where, like, just lay it out there and you're fine. Like, he's got to step on him. He stacked him. Like, it's the wide receiver is going. And like Kenny's like, nah, I'm going to throw back shoulder. And I get it, because you're not going to grit it. A lot of the time, the defender is going to have no play on the ball on a back shoulder throw, or you're going to get PI. So I understand why he's doing it, but man, just throw it out there sometimes. You can get some run after catch. And this offense, by the way, this offense has no run after catch. I'd have to look at the numbers of run after catch. I think they're the lowest in the league, though. But yeah, so going back to Kenny's play, I think at this point, I'm happy with the play of Kenny Pickett through 2 games. Obviously, we're going to get, we're going to have this whole season to kind of play it out. And then there is going to be a decision to be made at the end of the season. Because if the Steelers continue to be this bad, and I know this is not going to be a popular thing to say right now because everybody kind of believes in Kenny, but you are going to have to make a choice about Kenny Pickett versus CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. Because again, my whole criticism of Kenny going back to the draft was not that he was going to be a bust. I was not on board. My co-host Quincy and Ace and all them were, and Sonny, they all were like, "Oh, Kenny's a massive bust." Like when I watched Kenny on tape, my thought was not a bust, but I don't think he'll ever be elite, and that was my concern. And so you got 14 games of his play this year to decide: is he elite? Like, do you believe that he can be an elite? Can you win a Super Bowl with this guy? Or, you just happen to be a bottom 5 team and you have a chance at a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. Should you try to upgrade? I doubt the Steelers will. But remember, this is Omar Khan now. I mean, this is kind of, him and Tomlin kind of, again, remaking this team in their image. I think they'll certainly have to consider it. If this team does end up with a top 5 pick, boy, Will Anderson's going to look great in black and gold. For those of you who don't know who Will Anderson is an edge rusher from Alabama who has been a superstar for that football team since his freshman year. He came in very early on and was dominant, has been dominant. If the Steelers can add him to that defense alongside TJ Watt on a 5-year deal, they have to do it. They just have to do it. But I mean, regardless. All right, so let's get to your Q&A. Let's see what people are saying in chat. Luke says, never seen a Tomlin coach team look so poorly coached. Whether it's poorly coached or not. I mean, I've just never seen a Steeler team. Yeah, this outmatched. Certainly. I think there's that's they didn't belong on the same field as the Buffalo Bills, right? I mean, they're like that was like a Division II school playing an SEC school. It was non-competitive, as I said before. Luke also says nothing like kicking a field goal to make a 3-score game a 3-score game. Yep. Were you in my living room on Sunday? I said the exact same thing. Yeah. It's such a cowardly move. It is such a cowardly move. Just go for it. I mean, like, again, I understand, and he's this whole, like, I want to be, what did he say? He wants to be something smartly aggressive or something like that. Strategically aggressive, I think is what he said. No. There's another word for what you were, Tomlin, that I won't say on this show. But cowardly is the word I'll use. Luke also adding to the Will Anderson. Draft Will Anderson and use Highsmith as a trade chip. No. Draft Will Anderson and use Highsmith as a backup. And now you have 3 quality edge rushers that you can rotate throughout the entire game. And by the way, you're going to have hopefully Ogunjobi next year, but potentially he goes somewhere else. But you have Leal and Hayward, and then Will Anderson, Highsmith, and also, by the way, Defensive Player of the Year TJ Watt. Yeah, I mean, yes. And then the decent corner thing. I mean, corner in round 2. Again, if you have the first pick in the draft, you also have the first pick in the second round. You have pick number 33. You essentially have 2 first-round picks. Okay. Gio here says changes should be Pickens wide receiver 1. Check. Yes. Freiermuth wide receiver 2. Concussion. 3 concussions in a calendar year. I wouldn't expect to see Freiermuth back for a while. Deontay wide receiver 3. Chase 4. I'll disagree with you on Chase 4. Deontay is just it's just so maddening with the Deontay. Luke says, I like when they had Leal playing 5-tech when they were nickel. Yeah, I mean, just again, like I said, Leal needs to be first guy off the bench. You want to use him at tackle, you want to use him at edge. He played a lot of edge at A&M, so he certainly can do that. I think he is, again, he gives you that juice, that playing with that aggression out there. That's a lot of these defenders right now. Got a lot of going through the motion out there. A lot of going through the motion. Let's see. What else we got here? Great one says they're probably going to fire Canada the week after week 18, just like Fichtner. Yep. Well, Canada's got one more year in his contract, right? So they actually have to fire him because remember, they have not fired an offensive coordinator in quite some time. Todd Haley did not get fired. People don't remember this. Todd Haley not fired. Contract ran out. Elected not to re-sign him. Randy Fichtner not fired. Just elected not to re-sign him to a contract. Now, Matt Canada, I think, has 1 year left, if I'm remembering this correctly. So maybe we got one more year to wait. No, they'll fire Canada. They'll fire Canada. Well, we got a lot of not Steeler fans today, which I get it. I get it. Because when the Browns lose, did I watch Quincy's show after that game to see what to see Quincy yelling about that loss to the Chargers? Yes, I did. Will I be watching the Cincinnati podcast with my dog Ace and Zim after their loss to Baltimore? Yes, I will. So I get it. I get that. Listen, if you are a Browns or Bengals or Ravens fan and you're here to see me cry and to hear us all in our pity party about our Steelers, hi, here we are. Ali says Warren. Oh yeah, Warren. As far he's talking about Warren's pass blocking here, because Zora had a cut up of it. Yeah. Jalen Warren's a good player. All right. Let's do the Najee Harris bit. Because it was, look, at the time, if you go back and watch my take on AFC North talk, I understood why the Steelers were taking Najee Harris. And I did think Najee was the best running back in that class, even if I kind of, Javonte Williams is the kind of player I enjoy more. Because, again, you know me. I love those players with aggression. And Javonte is certainly that guy. I understood why the Steelers took Najee a year ago. Ben's last year, one last ride, right? You got to one last year as a Super Bowl contender. They're coming off at 12-4. Okay, well, we got to, to fix the offense, we got to fix the running game. You can't fix the running game when you're replacing literally all 5 of your starters. And, they didn't have the money because it's, this was like post-pandemic salary cap situation. So, easiest way to do that is go get a running back who's really good at breaking tackles. Okay, so that's what they did, and I understood why they did it. But man, taking a running back in the first round is really stupid. It's just a bad. It's such a bad investment because even if you hit, what are you hitting on? What do you think you're going to get? Even if Najee turned out to be a good player, the fact that it's so easy to find the Jalen Warrens of the world, the James Robinsons of the world, right? I mean, these guys, Kareem Hunt was a 3rd-round pick. I mean, this is just how the running back position is, a dime a dozen position. So yeah, I mean that pick's gonna get criticized. Team, if you were team, they should have taken an offensive lineman. You're feeling good about yourself today. I just, I don't want it to be like a hindsight 2020 thing because at the time I wasn't overly critical of it because I understood why. Even if I thought, intellectually, this is a stupid move, you shouldn't take a running back in the first round. I understood why they were doing it. It's just here we are 2 years later, and it's you should follow your, again, don't be results oriented, be process oriented. The process was that was a stupid pick. Whether it worked out or not, it was a stupid pick. And here we are today, and potentially Jalen Warren's a better player. Okay. Michael says, do you think Tomlin knows how to find an offensive coordinator? It seemed like the last few for the Steelers have had issues with calling plays or with the quarterback. Yeah, the best one he did was so his first ever hire, he inherited Bruce. I'm trying to remember the timeline here. Tomlin's first OC was Bruce Arians. Yes? Because Winston Hunt was OC, left. So Tomlin kind of inherited, he just kind of promoted from within, kept LeBeau, promoted Arians. So I don't even know if we'll call that an actual hiring of an offensive coordinator so much as just he wanted to keep the stability. Made sense. I didn't love Arians as an offensive coordinator. I thought he got Ben killed. I mean, his whole big chunks offense. I understand he went out and had some success in Indy and had some success in Tampa doing that. Although, where is Andrew Luck these days? I wasn't a fan of Arians. But the next hire he made, the first hire he made at OC, Todd Haley, I thought was a great hire. I thought it was a great hire. And again, you guys go back and listen to episodes of this show, Steeler Country, my old pod. You can see it on the podcast feed. I think I still have those episodes up. I love that hire. Loved it. I thought what I loved about Todd Haley was he was great as far as schematics when it came to matching his scheme to the personnel. Matching, okay, here are the type of personnel that we have. Here's the type of offensive line we have, the running back, the quarterback. Here's what we excel in. And so let me create a scheme around that rather than here is my scheme and we're just going to like take these players and force them into it. And, did he have his problems? Most of his problems were off the field. I know people got on him for play calling and stuff and like he's a terrible play caller. He wasn't great. There were like situational stuff that was wrong with him. Obviously, the pitch play on 4th down against Jacksonville will be the one everybody brings up. Again, I thought though, like from a 50,000 foot view, I thought Todd Haley was a quality offensive coordinator, but he did have to get fired because he was terrible off the field. Everyone hated him. And you got, this is a guy who got into a bar fight. You got into a bar fight outside the stadium at what was it? The Tequila Cowboy, right? Is that still there, by the way? I don't think it is. That whole strip is totally different now. I mean, of course, every bar or every strip like that is, but yeah, I mean, and Ben hated him so much. Ben hated him so much he wanted to retire. Hated him so much, Ben said, "I'm out. I'm going to retire if we still have Todd." Like, all right. Fichtner was a disaster. Fichtner was an absolute disaster. And then Canada. Yeah, I mean, Canada's also a disaster. Canada's also a disaster. I really would have expected a different offense from Matt. I'm really surprised that we didn't get an iteration on what Arthur Smith is doing because so much of what Todd or what Canada did in college, or if you go back and watch his pit tape, stuff like that, like he was far more, I don't know, he's far more creative back then, but it doesn't matter. I mean, right? I mean, he was creative back then. He's had 2 seasons to do this. And again, he's, all the excuses for Canada last year about, well, Ben's got no leg, he's got no arm, it's all the Ben stuff. Like, got none. They got to pick and choose their quarterback twice. I mean, they got Trubisky, and they screwed that one up, and just like, well, we're not going to create a Trubisky offense. And now they have Kenny, and we'll see how they do with Kenny. I think the nice thing is, I do think Kenny is better for this offense. Kenny is certainly better for what Matt Canada's running. It's a very, again, a lot of the stuff we talk about with mesh, and we talk about slant flat and all that stuff, and the stick concepts that they're running. It's very much timing based. It's kind of understanding. Okay, when linebacker goes here, I got to go there, right? So he's better for that offense for sure. Let's see. Gio says, when was the last time we got an OC that was a big name offensive mind? Todd Haley. Todd Haley was a former coach. I think he had just gotten fired. There was I was just thinking about when he got hired. I remembered this now. So he got fired from Kansas City. Do you guys remember that when he got fired from Kansas City, he accused them of the ownership there of like bugging all the rooms, the coaches meeting, so that they could spy on Haley? Look that up. I'm pretty sure that was a thing. I'm not. Maybe I'm dreaming it, but I'm relatively sure. Yeah. Okay. He did. Yeah, he did. He accused Scott Pioli, the GM of Kansas City, of doing that. So he was already like, again, clearly didn't get along with people. And that was his tenure. But that was the last time. And remember when they hired Matt Canada, didn't they interview Pep Hamilton? Didn't they interview Pep? I think Pep would be a good offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. I thought Pep did well when he was in, what was he, an XFL coach? And then he was in, where was he? He was at the Chargers. Where is he now? Oh, he's with he's with Houston now, with Davis Mills over there, trying to make Davis Mills happen. So I think Pep Hamilton might be a decent OC. Now I don't know if you want to take a lateral move, but Ali, we're talking about the Kenny play. And again, my question here for chat is: was it just a bad throw, like he didn't see him, he didn't see the defender, or was he trying to back shoulder again, and the defender just sat on the route? And Ali here is saying it was a bad throw. Izana here says, remember when Tomlin said to Chase Young, "I'm hoping I'm never in a position to draft someone like you"? I do remember that. And he's going to be, look, this team, there's been this whole, I don't know if you guys have seen the thread that's floating around Twitter today where they're like, oh, what's going to happen this year is the Steelers are going to be like 1-7 or 2-6, and they're going to win a bunch of games down the stretch. And, they're going to like play themselves out of a top 5 pick or whatever. I mean, I suppose that's possible, but how? This defense would have, okay, so you would have to imagine that from an injury perspective, things get better, but generally it doesn't happen, right? Generally, from an injury perspective, you have guys go out for the year. Those guys aren't coming back, and you have more and more, and the attrition just starts. The whole TJ thing, when TJ comes back, for those of you who haven't heard, so TJ has this pec injury. Now, from what I've been told, talked to a doctor about this. He's a fan of AFC North talk. He said, look, this is not going to heal fully. It's not like TJ's coming back at 100%. He's going to have off-season surgery. Now, potentially he can get like, pain meds or whatever to play through this injury. But at the end of the day, he's going to be playing through an injury. That's what's going to happen. So you're likely not going to get a TJ back at 100%. And also, he had arthroscopic surgery on his knee to clean that up based on the knee injury he had. So, again, they're not getting back a TJ Watt that's going to be like, he'll be a good player. He's going to be a plus for this defense. But is he going to be the same game record that he was coming in? Probably not, man. I mean, you're talking about a guy who just had knee surgery plus. I mean, I understand the knee thing was not like a major knee surgery, but he's dealing with a pec injury that he's going to need surgery on the offseason. Luke says if they wait for Canada's contract to scout his, or if they wait for Canada's contract to be done here, this franchise is truly lost. It would be pretty sad. It would be a sad state of affairs if they did that. But let's see what Canada does for the rest of the year. I mean, again, he's got Kenny. I don't know how much are they going to change, though. What do you guys think about the Cam Hayward thing, by the way? Well, we can talk about that today. For those of you who didn't see that, Cam Hayward butt tweeted a tweet that basically said that Ben carried Tomlin for his entire career. Like, he basically is like, Tomlin's a bum. He's been carried by Ben. And then the next part of the tweet, the second half of the tweet is Cam Hayward's like the only guy trying, or something. He's like the only guy out there running where making tackles that linebacker should be making, right? And Cam Hayward retweeted that yesterday and then said, oh, no, actually, sorry, that was a butt tweet. That was a butt retweet. So that happened live during AFC North Talk. So we talked it out there. There's no way that was a butt retweet. I mean, there's just 0% chance that that's a butt retweet. You can't butt retweet because there's a confirmation message. So, like, what you'd have to believe is that Cam is, like, on that tweet, because, I mean, anything other than him already being on the tweet on his phone makes absolutely no sense. Then he puts the phone away and, like, his butt clicks the retweet button and then clicks the confirm, yes, I want to retweet it and not quote retweet it. There's just no chance. He definitely retweeted it. Now, I do believe, though, that he didn't see the second half of the tweet, or the first half. He read the second half of the tweet, which is still not a great thing to retweet. But I think he was mad. He retweeted it because he saw the second half of the tweet, didn't read the first half, and then realized, like, oh, I should not be tweeting something that says my coach was carried and is trash. But yeah. Pat says Tequila Cowboy is still there. Is it? So I was at Heinz back in August during preseason. I know the Bettis bar is not there anymore. For those of you who have not been to Heinz, there's a whole row of bars right there. Because Tequila Cowboy made it. Good for them. Bettis bar did not. Bettis bar is closed. Just said, I love Bettis bar, even if it was massively overpriced. Ali says, Tomlin is the master of incrementally bringing people up, avoiding negativity with baby steps. I think he's trying to get the team ready for success after the bye to stack wins going into the playoffs. Boy, they need to start stacking wins now. I mean, this team's going to end up being like 1-6, 2-2, or what would be 1-7 or 2-6 going into the bye. And at that point, you're talking about you got to just win out. Again, could this team get to 6 after the bye? Let's go through their schedule. Actually, that'll be a fun thing to do together. Let's just go through their schedule and see how they're going to stack these wins. Because I've heard this all day is they're going to win a bunch of games late, and I want to know, show me on the schedule where these wins are coming. So let me pull up the schedule. Okay, so this is their schedule coming up. Now we got Tampa, Miami, Philly. That's before the bye. So you got 3 more games before the bye. Are they going to beat Tom Brady at home? Boy, that would be awesome if Kenny beats Tom Brady. He's a hero. We know that. Kenny Pickett put a statue outside of Heinz. At Miami is going to be interesting because I don't know if who's going to be quarterback in that one. Is it going to be Tua? Is it going to be Bridgewater? I don't think it's going to be the kid. Bridgewater probably could have come back in that game, they said. But okay, so that's a tough game though. Miami is certainly going to challenge his defense, and then Philly right now is, I mean, they're not. I don't know if they're the best team in football, but they have one of the best. They have the best record in football right now. They have a great defense. All 3 of those teams, Tampa, well, maybe not Miami, but Philly has a great defense as well. Because come out of the bye, New Orleans. Could they win against New Orleans? That defense is good. That New Orleans defense is good. I guess they could win that game coming out of the bye, especially with a week to prepare, although they had 10 days to prep for New York at home and lost that one. So Cincy, I think, is a game they could win. I do actually think they could beat Cincy because I think the problem for Cincy right now is it's too easy to beat them. You just run cover 2 and they just can't. They just we have no answer. So I actually think the Steelers could beat Cincinnati. Their defense is really good. But I think this Steeler team with Tomlin and Flores, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to beat Cincy. They already know how to do it. They're going to do the exact same thing again. And it's the question is, in the next 6 weeks, will Zach Taylor have come up with an option to beat them? At Indy is a winnable game because Indy I don't think is very good this year. It's a Monday night game. It's on the road. I don't think the Steelers will be favored in that one. I guess it's another possibility. At Atlanta is another winnable game. Baltimore. I would like to say that's going to be a win, but probably not. At Carolina, that should be a win. That's the one. This is one like, okay, they're not going to be 1-16 because they play Carolina. They absolutely are going to win that game. And then Vegas the very next week at home should also be a win. Should, because they can just bracket. They can just bracket Devontae. Then you got Baltimore again in Cleveland. Cleveland, the last game of the year. I mean, Cleveland's another winnable one. Because, like, so how many wins you see on there? 4? Like, realistically, Steeler fans. I understand we could, like, they win all their games they can win. Because they could beat New Orleans. They could beat Cincy. They could beat Indy. They could beat Atlanta. Right? They could beat Carolina, Vegas, and let's say Cleveland. That's 7. That's 7 wins. That gets them to 8. I mean, yeah. I mean, like, you want to be totally pie in the sky. You could say there's, like, 8 games on there where I could make an argument, even if it's a bad one. But, like, 4 of those games, split the 8 they could win 4. That's 5 wins. 5 wins gets you close to top 5. Let's see. I think he only read the second part and retweeted it. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think as well. But retweet is yeah, that's right. It did. That's right. The tweet said, for those of you who don't remember the tweet said, Tomlin is a clown. That and again, your most veteran player retweeted that. I just love the Steelers for this reason. I've been covering this team. I mean, like professionally, I've been covering this team for what? Doing AFC North Talk for 2 years, did Locked On Steelers for 2, so like maybe 4 or 5 years. I just love this team's ability to do stupid off the field things that all of a sudden it's like, well, there's no like it's so simple to not do these things. Like it's very simple to not retweet a tweet that says your coach is a clown. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple that your most veteran player doesn't retweet that. But, I guess we're just going to keep doing Facebook Lives and we're just going to continue to have incredibly silly things happen left and right with this team. I don't know. I don't think and again, this and don't obviously I'm having fun with this. Do I think Cam Hayward is like, a locker room problem and, they get rid of him? No. It's I think it's pretty clear what happened there. He read the second half of the tweet. Still not good, but man, it's one of those, like, it's so silly. It is so silly. John here says, go downhill for Will. I like it. Yeah. Tank, the little tank for Tua thing. Downhill for Will. Love it. Love it. Spencer here says Bengals suck. I'm not reading the next line. Steelers are okay in comparison to the Bengals. I do think the Steelers could sweep the Bengals this year. I do. I mean, we'll see what happens with that Bengals team because, beating cover 2 is not rocket science, but I guess when you have Zach Taylor as your offensive coordinator, maybe it is. I don't think the Bengals are going to make the playoffs right now. And I think that they may end up finishing with a losing record. And so I get, my original prediction for the Steelers team was that they were going to finish third in the division. Could the Steelers finish with a better record than the Browns? I think are too good. The Browns are like winning or losing games in like incredibly stupid fashion. So I don't think the Browns are going to finish fourth. The Steelers are likely going to finish fourth. But if you were going to like try to predict a team that could finish fourth and not the Steelers, wouldn't it be the Bengals right now? Because like with the Browns, okay, they're going to get Deshaun Watson back. Like, they'll be fine. But what's going to happen? What's the improvement that the Bengals are going to have between now and the end of the season that's going to propel them? They have to figure this thing out. And the fact that they didn't see this coming, I mean, it is kind of crazy. We talk about like coaching missteps. Like I talked about the Tomlin stuff today about how his whole quarterback thing, the whole offense thing, like post Ben is like so far it's just an out and out disaster. Because like you benched your quarterback in 3.5 games, and now you probably need to fire your offensive coordinator, but you're not going to. No. Oh, Eclectic Tyrone is here. Says he's a Ravens fan here. Y'all need to calm down. If you hadn't wasted games with Trubisky with that schedule, it'll be the same old beat the Ravens and you're in the playoffs. You think so? I mean, here's the problem. This defense right now, it's so bad. And I just don't see a way. How does this defense? Again, forget the Buffalo game. Forget the Buffalo. I mean, well, you have to, okay, use the Buffalo game in context. They were playing the best team in the league. So Buffalo beats up on fine. But they couldn't stop the Jets for 2 drives at the end. I mean, like they blew a 2-score lead. They got pounded by Cleveland. My problem with this team is not the offense. Right? I mean, I understand this offense will probably get better with Kenny over time as he kind of understands NFL speed and understands NFL defenses and whatnot. And they're not going to be playing like every week. They're going to be playing the Buffalo defense. And so, yeah, I mean, I think offensively they can be better. But the problem for this team right now is the Steelers defense is it's unrecognizable, isn't it? I mean, this is not the same defense I've been watching for 3 years. And even Minka last week it just wasn't Minka. I understand he's dealing with a knee injury, but like that was an un-Minka-like performance. So, yeah. All right, one more here. Spencer says the Bengals were 7-6 last year before the hot streak. Since 2020, they've been a bad to average team. The second half of last season looks to be an outlier. Yeah, I mean, I think the regression thing is real. Now, look, they have a lot of talent on that team. You can't deny that defense is playing really well. They have a lot of talent on that defense. And offensively, guys like Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, like these are talented players. I think that they probably should be they probably should be at least a wild card team. But right now, I don't think they even look like that. I don't think Bengals fans realize how bad they look on a week-to-week basis. I mean, that offense is one of the worst in the league. And it's absolutely crazy to say that. So, all right, I'm over an hour, and you guys know me. I cut it off in an hour. So thank you all for watching today. I'll be back on Thursday to preview Kenny Pickett versus Tom Brady. The Steelers have had so much trouble over the years beating Tom Brady. Can Kenny Pickett, in the last time these Steelers will ever face Tom Brady, can Kenny Pickett pull off the upset and get the W in Pittsburgh, in Acrisure Stadium? We'll talk about it Thursday, right here on Steeler Country.